Hello friends, I am the anti-terrorist. Thank you for all of your emails and your messages of support and for staying part of the conversation. Now I'm sure you'll agree that there is a lot going on right now that none of us are very happy about. And I'm sure you'll all know, having watched my videos and videos of others possibly, that you are the employee of a corporation. The United States is a corporation. The United Kingdom is a corporation. All governments are corporations. And by virtue of your social security number, you are an employee of that corporation. By signing your social security form, you gave the corporations permission to act upon you in the way that they do. So when you're talking about your constitution, you're talking about a contract between corporations. And it has nothing to do with your freedom, it has nothing to do with your rights, your liberties, or any of those things. The Constitution is not going to help you when it comes to becoming sovereign or becoming a free human being. Let's look at the person and rediscover what it is and what it actually means to be a person. Now, the man who speaks most eloquently about that, in my opinion, is a chap called Robert Menard. If you haven't already seen Bursting Bubbles of Government Deception, I would highly recommend that you watch it.
You are not obliged to register your children. If you do, it is at that point that you're creating a legal entity or a person. You are associating this person with your offspring. You are abandoning ownership or title to that person, and the government is seizing that. Under the laws of maritime salvage, it becomes their chattel property. They use it as collateral to float loans or to float bonds for loans. When they come to remove a child, they're not acting on the human being at all. They're removing the legal entity you created and abandoned and they now have title to. It's like borrowing a rain jacket from your neighbor for your kid. Your neighbor comes, says, I'm taking the jacket back. You let him take it with your child still in it. That's your person. That is what the government acts upon. A human being and a person are not the same thing. We've been led to believe that they are, but they're not. In Black's Law Dictionary, you'll find a definition of a person, and it says, a human being is not a person because he is a human being, but because rights and duties have been ascribed to him. Specifically, the person is that legal subject or substance of which the rights and duties are attributes. But not all human beings are persons, as was the case in Old England when there were slaves. You are not a person, you have a person. If you never know that this person exists, if the government is acting upon it and you are unaware of its existence, you're a slave to your own ignorance. Once you become aware of its existence, you can take it off at will. If that's the only thing they can act upon, you have the seed right there for your freedom. If you hold your jacket like this and say, go ahead and touch it, and the moment you touch it, I'm no longer associated with it, they're not going to want anything to do with that jacket. They're the ones left holding the hot potato. The purpose of this person wasn't to deceive you. It wasn't to enslave you. It was to provide you with a very strong level of protection against government tyranny. If they never act against you as a human being and they're only acting against your person, you always have the option to reject their governments and therefore escape tyranny totally and absolutely peacefully.
So having shown you that little clip now, I'm wondering how many of you, some of the sharper tools in the box, will realize that only persons will be going to the FEMA camps. Only persons go to prison for commercial crimes. Now those of you who are focused on lizards taking over the planet, they're not interested in your person at all. They're definitely after you. They're going to get you, and there's nothing I can do about that. Now in certain circles, your person is also referred to as a strawman or a vessel. And in this broadcast, I'm going to give you some remedy with regards to this situation. Or at least I'm going to point you towards a remedy. I certainly will not be responsible for any action that you take, but I will hopefully inspire you to look for yourself. So we have three remedies in this particular broadcast. We have what's called the free man route. Then we have what's called the capturing the straw man route. And the third route I'll talk about a little later. All of these options are not without risk. The free man route in particular is an arduous one. It basically involves relinquishing yourself of your straw man or your person entirely. It entails writing to the government, acknowledging the fact that you know the difference between the two and that you are not a person. It means that you have to hand over your national insurance number and stop using it. It may well mean that you have to give up your job, because I'm pretty certain your employer will not carry on employing you without that national insurance number. After all, he has no way of paying your taxes. And that's a whole other subject entirely. Essentially, it means you can no longer carry on claiming the benefits. Those of you who are on the dole, for instance, receiving Social Security benefits, those are going to disappear when you give up your person. It means you'll have to stand on your own 2 feet. It means you have to find a way of making money that doesn't involve your person. And that is perfectly viable, and it's done all the time. In places like Canada now, where the free man movement is moving at a very fast pace, and its numbers are increasing exponentially. You would be operating entirely in the private. You would be operating as a private contract for hire. It would be a huge life change and an incredible undertaking. But what is the price of freedom? My question to you right now is this, and you need to think about it very carefully. How free are you exactly? Are you only as free as the Constitution says you are? Are you only as free as some piece of paper says you are? Are you as free as the government tells you you are? Or the policeman perhaps? Or your neighbor? Freedom is an idea. It's an attitude. It's a paradigm. It is something that you be. Now, of course, anyone can force you to do anything at the barrel of a gun. But unless you know what real freedom is, and you understand the idea, you understand the paradigm, you get a sense of it, and you feel it in your bones, then you're always going to behave like a slave. And you're going to be treated like a slave. You have to change your mental perspective about the word freedom. To most, it is just a word that is spoken frivolously. You have the right to be free. Man, woman, or child, you are born free. And then we give it all away for the benefits to corporations who abuse their power left, right, and center. So you need to understand that the law of the land, the common law of each country, is based in substance. The common law applies to you, the flesh and blood human being. And having a good understanding of how the common law works and how the law of the land works will give you access to the freedom that you need from the Maritime Admiralty jurisdiction. So taking the free man route requires claiming your rights. You see, you have rights. If you believe in God, you have God-given rights. Even if you don't believe in God, you have birthrights. And as I expressed in my previous videos, you can only have the rights that you know how to claim. If you don't know what rights you have, then you don't have any rights, period. So Robert Menard has created, for instance, what he calls a notice of understanding and intent and a claim of right, in which he would lay out the terms and conditions of his occupancy of this planet. And he sends it to the powers that be, and if they do not rebut it within a certain amount of time, it becomes law. It's as simple as that. If you want to see what a document like that would look like, then you should go to thinkfree.ca and join the forums there. It doesn't cost you anything. In fact, it'll probably be a life-changing experience. There are lots of people on there that understand this concept very well, have created their own notices of understanding and intent, and you can get a sense of how to write your own. You will also get an idea of who to send that document to, and how to formulate it in such a way that it cannot be rebutted. The freeman route is probably the easiest to implement, to execute, because all it entails is writing a letter and stating your claim, and claiming your rights. After that, it's a whole other story. It does mean that you have to take a particular level of responsibility. You're not operating in the limited liability fiction world that is commerce. You are taking full responsibility for your actions, acting with full liability whenever you have an accident or a crash, because after all, only a person can have limited liability insurance from an insurance corporation. And there's a solution to that too. Which brings me to the second option, and that is capturing your straw man. Now, what does that mean exactly? Essentially, it means using your person as a shield against the government, as opposed to the government using it as a handle to get hold of you. Now, as you've seen with YouTube and other forums where the topic of discussion is the New World Order, there is a lot of disinformation out there. There are a lot of disinformation agents who will put out the antithesis of certain theories just to put people into a state of confusion. And the same goes for the world of redemption, or capturing the straw man. There are a lot of people out there in the government who don't want you to know these facts about your birth certificate and the fact that they're used as bonds and so on and so forth. And you're going to have to sort the wheat from the chaff in terms of dealing with this information. Of course, I'm only going to paint in broad brushstrokes here because this is not my information to give you. And I would hate to think that you would act upon any information I give you without exploring the source of the information first.